What's up guys, Dan Watson, learningcameras.com, A99 Mark II. I have been looking for this camera for a long time. I've been a wedding and portrait photographer for a long time, and the A99 might possibly be where I can start looking at different camera systems. A third camera option between Canon and Nikon is typically where I was, and the A99 Mark II really fits the bill of some of those features that I would need for this one. And so this is a really important camera for me and something that I was really looking forward to. That said, there are some big issues with this that are keeping me from jumping on board as of now, but we're going to continue testing this thing and a lot of things coming. So definitely take a look at the pictures on this thing. Man, I'm posting, we're in Austin right now, I'm posting at learningcameras.com on Facebook and my Instagram page, so definitely go follow me there if you want to see some of the results on this thing. But this is probably my favorite implementation of the flip out screen ever, and that is because of this. And so basically, no matter where you are, you have the ability to look up, you have the ability to look down. This thing flips around like this. If you wanted kind of a selfie mode down there, it can also go underneath. Now, I do know some people, if you put a mic on here or something like that, you might have an issue. For me, I'm generally not front shooting like this with a mic on top of the camera, and there's other ways of mounting a microphone. So I like this because it keeps my screen in orientation with the sensor and not flipped out to the side. And so I actually prefer it in the center, but I don't want to sacrifice the ability of having this thing turned around. Now, if you're using a gimbal like this, it is also fine because you can do something like this and then have this screen flipping out towards you and be able to rise above the gimbal. And so it's actually very nice for gimbal shooting as well. Now, there's no touch screen for touch focus, so that's a little bit of a negative there. Let me put that back. That's a crane gimbal. It's a really cool gimbal, by the way. I'm going to have more on that one. So overall, it's very, very nice. Hardware-wise, you have all the buttons that you would like and then some. I will say the placement is a little bit weird on some of them. They just kind of seem to have some random custom buttons wherever they could find a spot, including this one right up at the top here. This one's kind of a little hard to get to and not really near your fingertip system. And all the focus system, or you can program it to whatever you want, but there's a nice little scroll wheel and button right here, and that works well. My biggest hit on the actual build and hardware of this thing is the joystick. The joystick is very good, but it is pressable, and as soon as you press this thing, it's very easy to accidentally go up or down. The pressing operation, it still allows you to scroll up and down. And so that's the only thing that's kind of a weakness on that one. All the buttons feel really good. I like the general setup of it, and the only issue is getting used to kind of these random orientation of custom buttons on there one. I wouldn't mind a third scroll wheel, something like that. We do have one for shutter and aperture control, nothing for ISO, so you're hitting a button on that one. Another scroll wheel wouldn't be bad. Or at least Canon has a brand new button. I know my 5D4 here, but they have a new button on theirs that allows you to scroll and use the ISO when hitting that button. So there's little things like that. They're improvement. We don't have like backlit buttons or anything like that, like the D810. But overall, it is a very solid hardware camera. It feels built like a tank, and I generally like the placement of most of these operations on here. Let's talk about the focus system. The focus system is brand new. It's basically incorporating the phase detection that we would have from a traditional DSLR using Sony's translucent mirror. They have also added all your contrast and phase detection to the actual sensor itself. So it's basically the best of DSLR and mirrorless cameras in theory. Now in practice, I will say that I found it extremely responsive. I had no issues autofocusing at all. Moving the points around was a breeze. I was locking on focus pretty much always and getting great results. So I really do think that this is living up to the hype. And the big thing is being able to focus real time while you're tracking a subject. So this is, I believe, 12 frames per second. The 42 megapixel camera pumping 12 images a second, and that's insane. So it really seems like a good operation on that one. This is my big negative. Actually, I'm going to tell you about this in a minute. There's a massive, massive negative on this camera that is going to keep it from being a lot of the favorite cameras for a lot of you. So listen up for that one. It is coming up. The other big thing on this one is that there was a little bit of shutter lag, and I'm going to be playing around with it a little bit more. I had the settings on here tuned to focus rather than track. Rather than release the shutter, so maybe it was hesitating on the focus system a little, and that was keeping it from continuously taking some images. There were little frame gaps in my burst modes, and also when I felt like I hit the button, there was a little bit of a pause there. I don't notice that with my 5D4, and I have it set up that way, so maybe the way that this is using that, so I'm going to try shooting without that on and prioritize release and see how that shoots, and I'll update this if there's any change on that one. Overall, image quality wise, gosh, I gotta say this is one of the greatest cameras that I've used. 42 megapixels is pumping quite a bit of information. Low light results are actually really good despite that 42 megapixels. Now, it's not as good, I would say, as the A7R II, and probably because this is using a translucent mirror, which means Sony is losing a little bit of light on this. It's shining it up to the focus mechanism. The benefit is that we do have a separate phase detection autofocus system like their SLT cameras, but that is a negative, is that we're losing a little bit of light. But I would easily put this up against the best from Canon and Nikon, and especially the D810 and the Canon 5D Mark IV, both of which are not pushing anywhere close to 42 megapixels, and still I would put this up against them for low light results. So really, really good performance there. The speed is great, everything is great. Big negative, and here it is. The SLT, this A99 Mark II, was touting video features galore. We have 4K video, we have all of the features from all Sony's A7 series cameras, and it looks unbelievable. The results are amazing. However, because of the translucent mirror, we are stuck at an aperture of, I believe it's 3.5 for video mode. So you cannot change your aperture outside of video at 3.5. And adding to that, yes, 3.5 is it. So nothing you will do will ever be able to change that aperture if, and there is a big if. The other thing is that this is complete program auto, and so you don't even have the ability to fix your shutter speed, and so everything is going to be controlled by exposure compensation. So if you're in really bright light, your shutter speed could go anywhere to hundreds of a second for video, which is not what we want on this one. So it's basically an auto mode video camera, unless you disable the autofocus system. As soon as you disable that autofocus system, you are now shooting with a pretty powerful camera. So this is probably not a great camera for video for a lot of you, because I know a lot of you were excited about the autofocus possibilities with this camera, a combination of those 4K video modes. On the flip side of things, we got a Canon 5D Mark IV that has some limitations on the video performance at 4K, such as it's a 1.7x crop, and it doesn't shoot H.264, it shoots in motion JPEG at 500 megabits per second. Horrible files to work with. However, it has great autofocus performance because it is using only the contrast detection system on the sensor, and that system is really good. The dual pixel autofocus system like Canon is excellent. So that's basically what we're up against here. And some big limitations for me, I'm going to try and figure out that shutter lag, but for me as a video camera, this thing is really just bit the dust for me. I don't even want it anymore as a video camera. I really think this is going to be more difficult to work with than even the 5D Mark IV. And just because autofocus is really getting good now. We're getting to the point that autofocus systems should be able to work with video, and to put out a camera that doesn't is really a bummer to me. And even if you had to get rid of that separate focus mechanism, I think that would be an option, or at least for another model of this camera. And that leads me to the next thing, and that is I am now hoping for a possibility of an A9 camera. A9, rumored A9, is something above an A7, something that's going to give me a body like a DSLR, my dual card slots, rugged, I can take it anywhere, be able to shoot weddings and events with this thing, and even sporting events. But I still need the traditional features of the A7, with some very good systems on there, and they actually have phase detection on the sensor and really good autofocus performance. So maybe it's time for something like that kind of merges these two technologies, because unfortunately developing this system right now it has some issues with it, and mostly due to the video side of things. And also you do lose a little bit of light in the translucent mirror, so those are kind of some negatives. So now that we have good on-sensor phase detection, it might be time for Sony to give us a camera like this in pure mirrorless fashion. So stay tuned, follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm going to have a lot more on this camera and a lot more coming up, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.